Yeah, it's one little girl back in 2014 completely changed my life. 23rd of July 2014, my friend George, who's also a Tony Robbins trainer, he messaged me on Facebook and he said, my daughter's dying, it's terminal and all we can do is make her comfortable. And she's 5 years old. I'm not asking you for money, I want you to help me raise money. Revolutionary treatment in Germany, need to get her there like now. But that's the first time in my life I've been truly committed to something. Get her to Germany now. And then September I was at a Robbins event and I got a message saying she died.
That's impact.
Yeah.
That's impact.
Yeah.
Sometimes people who get the shortest amount of time have the biggest amount of impact. And I don't always understand why it works that way, but it does. If you can shift pain into purpose,
Yes.
that's rocket fuel.
Yeah. That's why my coaching and speaking is where it is. It's because of that one lovely little 5-year-old girl.
One of the highlights for everybody last year was where you went through past, present, future. Could you talk us through where that came from as a model?
What I realised was most people's problems either relate to the past, the present or the future. And the biggest danger is
That is like really hard.
a lot of the mindset industry is actually quite old now. And again, no disrespect to what Tony does, but Tony's model is
I don't want to create from that energy.
if you want to improve, you're probably going to have to play a completely different game.
That's the creative possibility. If you're in that energy, you create with an abundance mindset, not a scarcity mindset as well.
Absolutely true.
All right, so welcome along to this episode of the Grown Up Business Podcast. With me, Paul Evans, your host, and what plans to be a fun conversation with one of my team of coaches who actually is part of the team that we take out to our Grown Up Business Retreat once a year, and getting the chance to really dive into his background, where he comes from. Our guest today is Rich Waterman. Welcome to the show. Rich is a high-performance coach and founder of the Get Rich coaching and consultancy business, which is awesome. A background in applied biology from Oxford and a career as head of derivatives for JP Morgan Chase. Talk about varied, Rich. Yeah, he's also coached gold medalists, advised national sports team, and was the first UK-based senior trainer for Tony Robbins, the GOAT of personal development, who I would say, to be fair, really is a giant in the industry. Absolutely a pun intended. Rich was also the creator of the Be the Difference Today movement, which we'll talk about, and his whole kind of view on fundraising. And for me, I think last year's was one of the highlights of retreat was when you taught one of the models we're going to hopefully get a chance to talk about today, all about the past, the present, the future, and how to deal with that. So first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, I listen to that and go, I've had quite a varied background.
Just a bit.
It all kind of seems to make sense when I look back on it, but yeah.
Is it one of those moments of you live life forwards and understand it backwards? Is it one of those?
I think that's very true. I'm sure there's some patterns in there somewhere that we'll uncover, but yeah, I'm very much, I love variety, I love a challenge, so it kind of makes sense that I've had a somewhat varied background.
So how did you, let's just unpack a bit. So first of all, how many years were you in JP Morgan in the banking sector?
Yeah, so that was about a decade. So I joined Chase Manhattan originally on the graduate program, and that was very much a coming out of uni, I don't know what I want to do.
Right.
So I decided let's go for something that's hard to get into, challenging and well paid. And I basically knew nothing about investment banking, and eventually worked out how to be an appealing candidate. And then through various mergers, we merged with Chemical Bank, then we merged with JP Morgan. I sort of slowly moved up the ranks and became head of derivatives structuring for JP Morgan.
Right.
Which probably, looking back on it, why did I love doing that? It was probably pattern recognition.
Okay.
So just looking at kind of what the trends were in the market, what clients were trying to do, and then trying to come up with sort of interesting structures that would work for them and also something that would make money for us as well. And I think that pattern recognition goes through to coaching ultimately. Yeah. Where I've ended up. So
have you always been good at spotting patterns then? Is that something that's just been you're hardwired to do?
Yeah, I was one of those lucky kids at school that, I was very academic, found things easy. It was kind of set up for how my brain worked. And yeah, ultimately that degree in biology, that's pattern recognition, investment banking, pattern recognition. I had a sports analysis company, pattern recognition. And then
I'm thinking you had a sports analysis company.
yeah, so
What?
when I came out here, I didn't write that on the form, did
I
I?
don't know. I don't think you've ever mentioned it at the time
No,
we've hung
okay.
out either. So
Yeah, so okay, so I when I finished banking, that coincided with a sort of fairly messy divorce. I very much like, what do I want to do now? What am I passionate about? Which is
Right.
actually something that I very important for me and my clients now as well. And my dad had sold his consultancy business to a very large organisation in South Africa called the CSIR, which is basically the biggest research company in Southern Hemisphere. So a massive company. And they had a sports technology department, but they weren't really commercialising it very well. And I said, well, I fancy having a go at selling that for you in the UK. And they had a cricket system, a rugby system, and a football one, which was a bit more underdeveloped. So the cricket system ended up being used by all the English counties, the England cricket team. The ICC used it to analyse umpire performance, but kind of like the icing on the cake was the rugby system was used by Clive Woodward in the England team to win the World Cup. So basically, in cricket, you can bring video in real time and analyse it real time because you've got gaps between balls.
right.
Rugby, you can do a certain amount because you've got the ball out of play but it's more often post-analysis, and they do it all the time. It's just using tech to look at patterns of play and things like that. Football's much more difficult. It's kind of semi-automated now with improvement in software and computers and things. But yeah, that was kind of, I did that for about probably about 6 or 7 years. So
did that sort of drive your interest in driving performance? And do you think is that where it came from?
Yeah. I was looking at it going because like sports people are always looking for that edge, and this was an edge,
right?
And then towards the end of that kind of project or projects, that's when I first got into the Tony Robbins world,
right?
So I could see that there was a link between the two, and that probably, even though I don't specifically do a lot of sports coaching, what I noticed was that traditional sports psychology was somewhat outdated.
Right.
One example was I worked with a guy who was an international fencer. So that's using swords, not creosote.
Not painting white fences around buildings. That's
guarantee
definitely,
you there was probably a competition somewhere. But he was on the way to competition with his dad, who I knew very well. I used to work with him in banking. And he said, oh, my head's not right. So I worked with him for about half hour, 45 minutes. And he'd worked with a famous sports psychologist who'd been brought in by the fencing team to work with them for a couple of days. He said, yeah, I'll learn more with you than 45 minutes than I did with the other guy in 2 days. And why? Because I was using stuff that sports psychologists don't use.
Like what?
Well, one example, if you talk about him specifically, what we were looking at was, so fencing's interesting because you are very much either off or on. So when you're in the bout and you're trying to score a point,
right,
you have to be 100% on. If you're sort of lagging from, sitting down having a rest between fights, if you lag in, you're not 100%, and so you're going to lose early points against your opponent. And equally, the biggest problem for him actually was how do I switch off more quickly when the bout is finished? Because people tend to dwell on things, and this relates to future model.
Well, it also relates to entrepreneurship, right? Because I think one of the challenges is if you've had a really intense day, how do you switch off?
Yeah.
So are there some lessons in there that we can take?
Oh, totally. So I call this a sawtooth pattern. So basically, it's just having a system of rituals, could be questions, could be habits, in terms of I am now on, I'm in entrepreneur mode or I'm in fencing mode. And then at the end of the day, whenever you decide that is, again, having some habits and rituals and maybe questions again, like I'm off, so closed. So obviously what you're then doing is you're maximizing performance when you're on because you're straight into it, and you're conserving energy because you're switching off. So that's something we worked on with him. And then the other thing, which is like kind of weird stuff. So I have a view that there's always a solution mindset. So he talked about the fact that, really what I want to be able to do is to be able to move very quickly when I'm striking opponents and be able to see their movements coming in almost like in slow motion.
Right.
So we talk about the concept of a fly, like you're trying to swat a fly.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
So we basically like closed eyes kind of mild trance hypnosis thing where we introduce basically time distortion. So he imagined that he could move quicker than most humans could. So he just visualized that. And of course, if you visualize that, that becomes an unconditioned response. So you're not thinking about it anymore. You're just doing it. So actually you will move faster. And then he had the belief that he could see opponents come to strike him in slow motion. And it completely transformed his performance.
Wow.
And like you'd never do that in traditional sports psychology because it's like no one's come up with that concept. It's like so for me, kind of advanced mindset, which is the stuff that I probably worked on post Tony Robbins, is there's always belief there is a solution. It's just that no one might have thought of it yet.
Right.
And that's where a lot of my models come from. It's just it's very much kind of
so that's advanced mindset stuff in your world, right?
That's what I'm modestly
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to label it, then you might as well give it a label that sticks.
And I think that goes back to my biology degree, which is like, biology degree, you're always testing, you're always going, can I validate something? Obviously, a lot of what you do is like, you teach people stuff that works, and I'm from decades of experience, right? And a lot of my models have come from, often it's almost like a Richard Branson kind of approach. Branson has got a history of looking at sectors that don't work very well. Like there's an established market, established demand, but I think I can do it better. And that was very much my approach of mindset is there's stuff out there that everyone talks about, but I don't see anyone questioning, actually, is it effective? And even with some of Tony's stuff, it's depending on what you're looking to do, some of it's highly effective, but other bits is like, I think there's probably something else that might be more efficient. That's very much my background is how can I make something super efficient? I'm not a big believer in hustle, grind, throwing a lot of resources at it. Sometimes you do need to do that, obviously. I'm a much bigger believer in can we do things more efficiently and effectively? Because entrepreneurs, we've got a limited amount of time in the week, we've got a limited amount of energy, resources, time.
100%.
So I'd much rather look at what's effective and build from there rather than just throwing kind of, I call it old hat really. A lot of the mindset industry is actually quite old now.
Yeah, I mean a lot of the stuff you're seeing that gets posted on social media in my experience is just repurposing of stuff that's been around since. If you go back to the classics of, Think and Grow Rich, you go back to How to Influence People. Yeah, they're all derivative versions of that or stuff around NLP, and which is fine, right? No issues with that. Yeah. But there hasn't probably been massive innovation in that space in terms of, or not, I mean, there have been certain concepts that have definitely been rolled out and improved. But I think there hasn't been a disruptive kind of here's a new model of how to do it. There's definitely more stuff coming out now around performance and from a brain neural research point of view. Like, this is how the brain works. This is how the brain functions. And actually a lot of the stuff that was being taught before either is like true and now we can prove it. So we can now prove why meditation works. We can now prove why visualization works. Or it's now like we can now prove why some of that stuff doesn't work. So I think there's this merging actually interestingly between the science and the mindset piece to go, oh, right, that's why, vision boards work, because there's a actual science behind constantly seeing the same thing over and over and over again. It builds a subconscious muscle memory, right? Like,
exactly right.
So just go back. Can we go back for a second? Because I want to unpack something for a second. You dropped out, which was, and I think this is one of the hardest things to do as entrepreneurs. Look, transparency, I struggle with this. When to be off and how to be off.
Yes.
Being on, I'm all right with. Like, get up in the morning ritual, listen to the certain types of music or certain meditation tracks to get you in the mode, the 3 questions for the day, all of that kind of stuff. I'm fine with all of that.
Yeah.
It's just that how do you come out of that when you're in such a high intense environment?
Yes.
And then go, certainly if you've got to go back into your family life, it's like, how do you switch the identity piece?
Yeah.
So like, can you give us some other questions or some tools that might help with that? Because I think it is one of the challenges of being an entrepreneur is you can literally go, especially nowadays, you can go from being on Zoom calls with people at 5 o'clock at night and then suddenly walk into your living room and now you've got to be able to go off. And that's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a great question. And I think the biggest danger is kind of being half in, half out. That can be the most dissatisfying space. So like, you're trying to do business, you're getting distracted by personal and family life, or you're trying to do personal and family life and you're getting distracted by business. And so I think like being clear about what is on and what is off is very important. So I had a client this week actually who's having a summer break in the States. It's up in Calgary, beautiful setting. And he said, I feel a little bit uncomfortable about the fact that I've only done a couple of calls up here. And I said, well, the problem is that you're measuring your off time using parameters from your on time. In other words, he's meant to be having a break and a vacation, and he's still measuring himself against his work life.
Yeah.
And so we had quite a long discussion around actually what does on look like. And I think the people in your world, like people that I've seen at your retreat and other events, they're actually generally very good at the on bit.
Yeah, the on bit I think you can. We're pretty good at dialing that up.
Yeah, because you wouldn't be a successful business person if you weren't. Right?
Yeah, you wouldn't be a grown up running a scaling business if you couldn't dial it up. Yeah, right, like 100%.
Exactly. So what I think, and it might be consciously or unconsciously, what I think people have done in that space about being on is they know what the rules of the game are, they know what the objectives are, they're measuring themselves, they're measuring the business. So therefore, they kind of know what habits and activities relate to being a successful business person.
Right.
So you just do the same, but with off. So you go, so really then the parameter, probably the question is, what do I need to do, or who do I need to be when I'm off to effectively nourish my soul, to re-energize, to be in a great place? Because while I think most success, not all, but I think a lot of successful business people, generally their business aligns quite well with who they want to be and how they want to run their lives. There's a whole other question there about, are you running your business or is your business running you? But I don't think people spend a lot of time on the off side to go, what do I actually need in that space? Because with business, you've got clear targets. So I have a clear target for off. So for me, it's like, I know I need to get to the gym and swim at least 3 times a week, probably 4. I haven't been able to do that this week and I can feel it.
Right.
I think one of the weird things that I do is I play croquet at a very high level, right? So
you do? Like just an unbelievably high level, right?
So yeah, I'm an international player for Wales. That wasn't the original intention. But what that does, that's meditation for me. Because when I'm going around and playing croquet, it's almost like a snooker break almost.
Yeah.
You go into mild trance. That's good for my brain. I know that me spending time learning things, and it could be learning about business, could be personal development stuff, just developing that's good for my brain. I consider that off time for me.
Right.
So it's a kind of a long answer to your question, but I think it's just being and I don't think many people do this.
No.
For the benefit of me and my well-being, because well-being is also being well, is what do I need to focus on? Who do I need to spend time with?
Yeah.
What activities are useful? What environment's useful? As you know, I've got a retreat space up in North Wales. I literally just go there because it's in the mountains in the middle of nowhere. I literally just go there, and it's me just entering that space is re-energizing, nourishing.
I'm the same with the Lake District, actually.
Yeah.
We went up, Sue and I went up to the Lake District recently, and for our 21st wedding anniversary, and the minute we get near there, it's a very different energy.
Yeah.
It's much more grounded for me, and literally I can feel my body go and relax.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah.
But I do think, especially if you have a home office where you work from home, there isn't a natural break, is there? But if you work in an office or you come to a studio, I get in the car and drive home, there's a mind break built into that day.
Yes.
When you work at home all day, there isn't. It's not there. So you walk from one room to another and suddenly you're supposed to be off. And that for me has always been the bit that I've found the hardest to try and control. And then if you layer in on top of that, the digital economy of the fact that we're all on, and for me, that FOMO is something I have to work very hard at, of like, great, I'm going to go off at say 7, right? My phone's like not answering WhatsApps, or I'm not doing that after 7 o'clock. And yet I know absolutely from experience that loads of my clients or people who are in my network or whatever will send me stuff at 8 and 9 at night because they're thinking about stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I've got to wait till tomorrow to read that. And that is like really hard to
hard.
not read that stuff at night.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of that. It is a different routine, but I don't think most of us define what off looks like and what we're measuring it against.
Yeah. Yeah. You probably have clear boundaries around business and work. Like, these are things that I am prepared to do at a certain price, et cetera, et cetera. I think people's boundaries, particularly the entrepreneurs, people's boundaries can get really, really blurred. And it's just like, okay, what is a business critical thing that would need to interrupt my off time? And for most people with most businesses, it's going to be quite a few. I can understand if you've got a manufacturing business and something's going wrong with the production line, can cost you, thousands and tens of thousands or more, that you would need to react to that. And I think that's probably a key word here is react versus respond. So it is you're right. Setting boundaries. It's moving yourself out of reaction and more into response. Most things probably can be dealt with during the next on time. And I'm as bad as anyone with this. Like, I have certain clients will message me with something they think is probably critical. It definitely isn't. My definition of critical with the client is your life's at risk, basically.
That would be critical,
and then I will definitely come up with a response. But I think most people don't understand that. Then people with jobs, it is literally generally end of day, everyone's going home. That's it. Off's quite easy.
Yes.
I'm not saying they're necessarily very good at nourishing themselves during the off period, but the boundary is more clear. Entrepreneurs, that's hard. It is. It's like, I'm done for the day. That's enough. Particularly with a growing business, early stage business, the temptation just to throw yourself.
You're still a major. I mean, until you get well beyond 1 million, you're still a major cog in it, right? So, and again, I think there's a distinction here between whether you're a product-based business or a person-based business. If you're the product, as in it's a person, then you are absolutely integral in that business, and therefore you disappearing for a week is. And I've seen it recently with, people that I know or people in my network where they are the glue, and the product and the business isn't 1 million yet, it's 500,000. It's still based around them. They go away on holiday for a week or 2 weeks, and the wheels fall off. And suddenly they get dragged back into it, and now they're on holiday working, which causes them all kinds of issues, and they're resenting the fact that. And you go, well, actually, I'm very aware that for me, 7-10 days max is about the longest I want to do out of the loop, because I just I miss it. I enjoy it. I love it. I don't want to go and spend 2 weeks on the beach doing nothing. That would, my wife would go, that would drive me insane. So
me too.
But I do think that daily, certainly, like for me, I have to have a whole digital detox day at the weekend, at least one, where I'm absolutely off digital completely. Saturday for me is my kind of like, right, I'm off everything, and that allows them. I think that helps, and I try and shift environment. For me, this is the recharge time. I've talked about the 3 different types of kind of time for entrepreneurs. There's a lot of people call it hustle time, but I'll call it kind of connect and collect, where you're out connecting relationships and collecting opportunities and then converting them, right? So connect, collect, convert becomes your kind of mantra when you're in that mode. There's definitely the stage before that, which is the plant and plan. Most of us don't do anywhere near enough time of planting seeds and planning at all. And if you don't, it's very hard to do connect and collect. It's very difficult to go out and connect dots and connect with people, because you don't know what you're talking to them about. If you haven't planted seeds, you can't collect anything, right? It's a farmer mentality, but it's still true. It's like, it's very hard to harvest if you haven't done a good job of planting. So there is a lag time, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that. And then the third part of that is the rest, recovery, recharge. And that bit, if you ask most entrepreneurs when I coach them, of the 3, which one do they give the least attention to? It's the rest, recovery, and recharge. Kind of recharge themselves. And I think, you've coached and worked with people in the sporting environment. They pay as much attention to recovery as they do to performance.
100%.
And I think it's something that fundamentally needs to shift in entrepreneurs. And it's certainly been a big change for me over the last year of starting to go, how can I improve my recovery, not how can I improve my performance?
Yeah.
So changing what you're eating, changing what you're drinking, working on sleep as an intention. For me, that's you get performance because you've got better at recovery.
100%.
It's kind of a weird sort of mindset thing, right? Like you've got better at recovery, which is like sometimes doing nothing but watching a movie.
Yes.
For me, 2 hours of watching a Marvel movie is probably as good for me as like 3 days away. Sometimes if I just sit down and watch a really great superhero movie and completely switch off, and not be watching a movie while on your phone, which is the other risk, right? If you're at home, most people are watching TV and they're on their phone at the same time. It's like, well, you're not present anywhere. Then.
Yeah, you're half in, half out.
Yeah, not at all. So I do think it's really interesting that you came through that world in terms of observing that. Yeah,
so I think it's about being effective, right? It's why this rest and recovery thing is like people confuse hours spent in business in terms of being effective, but it isn't, because if you don't have the rest and recovery, your productivity during whatever hours you're doing could be massively impacted and deteriorated. So one model that I think I've ever spoke to you about before is, so I created I wanted to have something that was would help entrepreneurs and business owners and senior execs to understand how important presence is, and this rest and recovery thing comes into that. And so in fact, I released a 1-minute video today on it. I call it space. So 3 definitions of space.
Okay.
So the first one is mega space. And mega space is holidays, significant breaks, probably at least 5 days, 5 to 7 days probably will be sort of thing you're looking for. And that I noticed this. I was on holiday in Cyprus, actually just before retreat last year, and I just a total break from the business, and I noticed that my thinking around my business and my creation of models and all these sort of things, even though I wasn't going to be thinking about business, it just exploded because I had that space away, I had that reset, I had that time away, and I went, do you know what, I call it mega space. That's really important, which is why things like off-sites for business, away weekends, maybe even a like three-day weekend will be effective in that, because it just makes you think differently.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, well, something I naturally do is kind of a weekly check-in, feedback. How was that week? Did it feel good? What bits were challenging? How do I want the next week to look? These sort of things. So I call that a macro space, kind of a level down. So it's just taking time to get feedback, taking time to adjust, making sure you're in a good place. And then the stuff that I think can have a massive impact early on, I call it micro space. And it is just, even during your day, are you spending time just to have a moment, breathe properly, hydrate, move around a bit, just sit there and give yourself time, move from reaction to response, these type of things. So you've got these 3 types of space: mega space, big breaks, reset. Macro space is more kind of the journey, the ongoing flow piece. And then micro is how am I living that day to day. And what I found with most, particularly entrepreneurs, senior execs, is you start to mention the words presence, flow, these type of things. You can see them sort of recoiling slightly because they think it's fluffy. And to be quite frankly, a lot of content out there is fluffy around it. But if you can help people understand, if you're approaching your business, say, from the right energy, and that energy being presence, completely changes the game.
Yeah, 100%.
Exponential. It's like, and you add that to the right strategy, which is you're brilliant at, right? The right strategy with the right energy,
it's a game changer.
Total game changer.
And that's a really interesting perspective, because I think one of the reasons why retreat works so well is because it is the mega space, actually.
Absolutely.
Because you're going away for 4 days, 5-star hotel, all looked after, taken care of. You've got downtime in the afternoon to just sit, reflect, think.
Huge.
You totally do it away from the business. So you kind of get that mega space, but you also get the second element of that in terms of you do have breaks in the day. There is the recharge pieces as well. So you're kind of getting both. In just sitting here reflecting. It's without realizing, I did it because I was so sure the power of getting everyone out of their environment. There's something very different when you get on a plane or on a train and you travel somewhere. When you go somewhere to just be somewhere, because you put that effort in. You go, well, I've come all this way, so I may as well make the most out of it. Or I've come all this way, and now I've got perspective, which is, I think, the thing that most people are trying to get on their business
Yeah.
and their life is a level of perspective.
Yes,
You
100%.
cannot get perspective when you're up close. It's impossible.
You're in it. You're in the trees. You're in the forest.
You can't see the wood for the trees, that cliche, but you have to go back. You have to go a distance to get perspective. And I think if you've never experienced that before, you don't really get the power of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I remember when I first started running masterminds, I'd like do a day and I would just ram it full of content. Whereas now, actually quite similar to how you run your retreat, it's great space, great people. You ask a few challenging questions and you give them time to process and reflect on it. And that's what I loved about going on the retreat last year with you, was people get really high quality exercises and questions which they would never ever do in their own business. You're not going to stop and ask yourself those questions in day-to-day business activities. It's just not realistic.
No.
You're in an environment of an unbelievable peer group where people don't have egos, but you're very good at encouraging people to share success. So then other people go, I could do that. I could do something. I could do my version of that.
Yes.
You've got time to mix socially and ask further questions around that. And then, as you said, you've got this reflection downtime to then process. It's probably actually I think what Tony Robbins does is fantastic, but it is properly rammed with content and exercises, as you know.
It doesn't allow you. I've done them all.
Yeah.
It does. I mean, Tony's great. It changed my life. Date with Destiny will forever go down as an event that changed my life,
phenomenal.
right? Without pressure, right? But it is full on.
Yeah.
Like you come away, you're pumped, but you're also pretty shattered.
Yes.
And I'm like, that's not necessarily, I want people to come back fired up, but also fueled up because they've got enough rest to be able to go implement and take action on the stuff that they got. Because if you come back fired up but exhausted, that's not you're frustrated actually.
Yeah.
Because you've got loads of these, I want to go do all this stuff, and they go, I just can't go any energy, I'm knackered. Whereas if you come back kind of fired up but fueled up from the inside out, then what you do in the next 3, 6, 12 months, it changes lives.
Yeah.
It changes businesses forever. It accelerates. You have breakthroughs in thinking that, like one of our clients who spoke at Summit this year, Scale Up Summit, Aidan Meller's whole idea for AI, for Ada, the AI robot that's recently just
crazy. Yeah, it's amazing.
Created a picture of the King of England.
Yeah.
That whole idea came from a breakout session on a retreat.
Wow.
Because he was just in enough of a space to sit there, and I was talking about AI and the future and where it was going and all of those good things and what was likely to be happening 5 years from now. And he was just sitting there going, well, okay, so how does that apply to the art world?
Yeah.
And then somebody said, I can't remember exactly, but somebody the idea emerged from a group discussion of, I could create the world's first AI artist, a robotic artist. And bear in mind, at that point, he knew nothing about robotics, didn't know anything about AI, didn't know anyone in that world, but that idea was given to him.
Wow, amazing.
And I think sometimes you can't receive downloads if you're constantly in hustle mode. You don't receive, downloads. I love the fact that, like, I'm a big Coldplay fan. I love the fact that Chris talks about the fact that sometimes songs they're just wherever they come from, they just come in. Yeah. And I think quite often you need to be in a space and a place where the channel's open for the idea to get to you.
Yeah.
You stop chasing the idea, let the idea come to you.
Yeah.
And that for me is when you realize that the more of those opportunities you create for the downloads, the better you just go, hang on a second, I could go that way, or I could go that way. That's 3 times faster.
Yeah.
And by the way, someone has just done it over there who's done something similar. So let me go and have lunch with them and go, right, you just did that. What did you do? How did you do it?
Yeah.
What would you not do again?
Yeah.
And if you were advising me having already done it, what would you suggest?
Yeah.
Like, that conversation doesn't happen if you're working in your office. It doesn't happen if you're sat behind your desk. It just doesn't. And that's the power of, like, I always say that transformation can happen. It can happen in the room. It can happen when you're sat by the pool. It can happen when you're talking to somebody walking on the beach.
Yeah.
That moment will occur, but it will occur because you're, like you say, 100% you're present, right? You're not somewhere else.
Yeah.
You're not trying to get to somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. And that for me, last October, my first experience of retreat was, so you're putting yourself in a different environment. You're approaching it with probably a desire really to kind of disrupt not everyone might be aware they're there to disrupt, but you giving yourself an opportunity to disrupt what you're doing.
Yeah.
In an environment that has an amazingly high quality peer group. So as you said, there's probably someone that's done something similar to what you want to do.
In their industry, yeah.
In their industry. Yeah. And then I think the big difference I notice, and again, no disrespect to what Tony does, but Tony's model is bring a load of energy to something, kind of disrupt, realign. And then I remember asking at the end of when I became a trainer for Tony, I was like, oh, we don't seem to create much of a plan when people are going home. And it was quite deliberate. It was like the event is about disruption, energy, reorganization. And then you either go home and do it by yourself, or you hire a Tony Robbins coach, right? And one of the things I loved about your event, which I saw a lot of similarities with what I like to do, is you spend a significant amount of time at the end, which is, okay, what's your plan to take this back to your day-to-day life, day-to-day business life, 100%. Day-to-day personal life? And that's massive, because you've got to be able to land back in your own environment and for it to be effective. Because otherwise it's just like, oh, well, that was a really nice experience and nothing ever changes. Yeah. And you do that very well in terms of, just people thinking about what's this going to look like when I go back, and maybe have to explain things to my partner or even business partner or team, or it's mapped out to a certain, it's never going to be exactly.
No, but that's why it's called a map, right? Yeah, I mean, everyone leaves with their map.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Which is interesting, because I think this year, for the first time, I think one of the things that I've always been frustrated with in the previous sort of years that we've run it is we would get to sort of lunchtime on day, when it starts on Monday and Thursday, so day 4, and you can feel the energy shift because people start thinking, I've got to get a flight tonight at 7 o'clock. So the level of presence starts to drop off. And I've always been a bit frustrated by that, because it's like they're going to rush the last hour or two. And actually, those last hour or two of planning is actually some of the most powerful stuff you get to do. 100%. So the fact that we this year have found a way to make it work with a hotel that everyone can stay for an extra night for the same price, because we're in Tenerife. So they can fly back Friday morning, all refreshed, ready to go, fly back, and they'll stay Thursday night. So we can have a proper celebration. Yeah. You know, let's have a blowout. We've all had a great time. Let's enjoy Thursday night. Let's have a blowout on the beach. Let's have a barbecue on the beach. Have a great time. But you would have properly designed out the next 2 to 3 years of your life and your business trajectory in that afternoon session that we never had the time to go that level of depth before.
I love that.
And I'm genuinely excited and stoked for the fact that we get to do that this year. And then we all get to celebrate together, rather than some people catching a plane at 10, some people catching a plane at 2, some people catching a plane at 7, some people staying over to the next night. So as a community, we will all stay together for the event from beginning to end. And I think that's going to change it quite a lot, actually. Yeah. Apart from the fact that it's in a stunning location and, we're on the beach and it's, gorgeous. I just think having that extra afternoon and evening to integrate before going back and implementing will change the game.
Yeah. And I see corporates making the same mistake as well. They're like, hire me for a day or two to go in, do an exercise, do a workshop with them. And now I always insist we need to build time into whatever time we've got.
Yeah.
So how do we implement this? Because otherwise, if you don't, it's just human nature. You just go back to your old habits, because that's what your survival brain likes, what your ego brain likes. It likes
the brain likes what's familiar, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So you've got to give yourself time, as you said, to integrate and to be able to kind of, well, for some people it's going to be seeing it. They can see how things can be different when they go back. Some people want to feel it. Some people need to have the conversation with themselves, more the auditory thing about, okay, I can almost talk myself through how my life's going to be when I get home. So yeah, it's huge. And sadly, I think a lot of courses or programs just don't focus on that. And I think in some ways it's the most important thing, because like if you have an insight or a change, you've got to think about how you implement it.
Yeah, for me, that's evolved of years and years and years of running these things, right?
Yeah.
And we're in our 11th year of running retreats. So you figure out what works and what doesn't work after a while and start to go, okay, that bit really worked, that bit didn't really work.
Yes.
And every year, I'm looking at it through the lens of, every retreat is different.
Mm.
We have slightly different teams every year. Obviously, you're back this year, which is super exciting. Not everybody who came last year is coming back. It's slightly different. It's got some different energies in it. It's got some new energies in it. It's got some people in it that I didn't know last year that I think will add different value to the proposition. And the world's in a different place to when it was, I mean, my favorite kind of like example of the world being in a different place was the year when we started retreat on the Monday. And we normally say to everyone, let's try and stay off the news for at least the week you're here. Don't listen to anything.
Yeah.
By the time we went home on the Friday, the Chancellor had been fired and the UK currency had crashed and like all of that. And the PM was on the ropes. And we're like, we were only gone for like a week, right? Like it feels like we left with the UK had whoever it was, the Prime Minister at that time. And we literally came back to Chancellor's fired, pounds crashed, markets in a mess. And you're like, wow, that was like a week. But that was my kind of the extreme version of stuff.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, I'd love you to share with us and also to share how you came up with it. Because I think one of the highlights for everybody last year was when you took, I can't remember, I think it was, did we do it just before, we did it on the Tuesday night, didn't we? We did it on the Tuesday night where you went through past, present, future.
Yes.
Can you talk us through where that came from as a model?
Yeah.
And then give us some indication and give, for those people who've probably never heard you talk about it.
Yeah.
Because I felt that shifted people in a way that was incredibly powerful.
Yeah. I'll talk about the model first and I'll talk about where it came from probably afterwards.
Great.
That was a very powerful experience for me. So when I'm coaching my clients, I'm always looking for kind of what's the most efficient way of doing this? How can we cut through to what they really need? And I've been coaching people since, about 2006 really. And again, using other people's models, very much Tony Robbins focus for many years. And then as I moved out of the Robbins environment, my brain was thinking, I feel that there's consistent patterns here with clients, but I haven't totally nailed what's going on.
Right.
And then I came up with the model, and the model was actually based on a grid that I hadn't seen the link, called the Be Different Stay grid. I hadn't seen the link. I'll talk about the grid in a second. But what I realized was most people's problems, in fact, maybe you could even argue all people's problems, either relate to the past, the present, or the future. So if we look at the past, the problems with that is guilt, shame, regret. So people spend their life looking over their shoulder all the time. And quite frankly, over-focusing, over-worrying, expending energy, put themselves into negative emotional states over something that is done. It's finished. It happened.
Yeah.
So, okay, so then you go, well, they're used to that. Well, I think there is a use to it. I remember when I spoke on stage at the retreat, I mentioned prehistoric stuff a lot. I was doing lots of Uggs on stage, which wasn't planned, but I enjoyed it. And so, again, this is useful. That's my biology degree. It was like, okay, well, I have to assume that most what I'll call normal people, the way their brain works, sometimes it can be very frustrating, but there has to be a reason why it works that way. Right. Because we all pretty much think the same, give or take, right? So why do we look backwards? Well, we need to learn. We need to gather experience and wisdom. We probably don't want to repeat mistakes. And we also do want to repeat the stuff that's worked. Like when you're in the caves, that's really important, because if you start to evolve and learn what's working and what isn't working, you've got more chance of surviving fundamentally.
Yeah.
So with the past bit, I'm always going, right, okay, so how do we need to use the past deliberately? Well, guilt, shame, regret are all useful emotions in the moment, but really all they're asking you is, it's probably something from that you might need to learn, or it might just be an old habit. It's just repeating. You just need to retire the habit.
Right.
So I talk about the past very much as treasure chest, experience, resources. From a personal point of view, I call it something called the awesome list, like all these things about me that I believe to be true that's incredible. So you should be looking backwards, basically, for resources.
Do you need to reframe to get the resource?
Yeah, I think so. Stuff that was painful and hurt, I think you need to go, what have I learned from this? And then it might be, I learned that, verbal agreements don't suck and people will have you over. Well, what you might actually learn is, okay, I need to have written agreements. I need to hang around high quality people. That'd be a better learning because it's more positive framed.
Or I need to invest in a good lawyer, or like,
yeah. I need to get my
I need
legal
to properly get my legal
Yeah.
sorted out. Yeah.
So I'm always looking at positive framing for the past, right? So the good news about the past is it's happened. All you've got is a memory of the past. It's not the past. It is a memory of the past. And I remember doing some landmark forum years ago, which I found really useful, was really with the past, you've got a series of facts that happened. And often people don't remember the facts accurately.
True.
You attach meaning into it and you create a story around it. So the facts pretty much were the facts. Meaning you can always change. So you can always change the story. So you can always change how you view the past. Like my divorce in 2001, massively painful, hated the experience, really awful. Now I look back, I would not be doing what I'm doing now if it wasn't about the divorce. So thank you very much. Interesting gift, but very useful. So even though I call it past, present, future model, then the future, I normally jump to the future next because I think the present bit is a bit of a how do we live it. So I kind of leave that last. A lot of people take the bad stuff from the past and without even thinking about it, just put it into their future all the time. They're constantly doing this unconscious process of their futures just reliving the horrible bits of the past.
Right.
The best bit about the future is it's completely made up. Totally manufactured. So people will come with all these things they're worrying about, and anxiety and worry are the two things to look for in these things. Why do we experience anxiety and worry? Because, again, going back to living in caves, we need to be prepared. We need to think about what's coming. Have we got winter coming? Have we got enough resources? Have we got enough food? Have we got enough water? Do we need... So it actually makes sense from a survival point of view. It makes sense to plan and look ahead. But it's made up. So I was very fortunate, actually, that while I was thinking about this model, I had a new partner in my life, and it was very sad, actually. One of her best friends died suddenly of a brain hemorrhage, like early 50s, just went. But this lady lived life at a level 10 out of 10. She's like full on. Had this phrase called full colour future. I'm like, I like that. So my partner actually bought me like a painting of full colour future. And that's important in life in general, definitely in business, is what do I want? What am I moving towards? It relates very much to, I think successful business people do have targets. They know what they're traveling towards, but you need to review that periodically. I think that's equally true of life in general. Like, what do I want in my life? What is my off time? What do I want for my off time? So that's really powerful then, because then your brain is focusing on positive stuff, and then of course you're going to subconsciously start acting towards creating that future. So rather than subconsciously acting towards creating problems and thinking, oh no, here we go, I've got to fix it. No, I think most problems go away, which is again why I sort of parked a lot of NLP and Robbins stuff, because that, if you're not careful, you become a serial problem fixer. And that's not what life's about. Life's about creating what you want. And what I call debris can show up that you might need to fix, might need to deal with, but that should be quite a small part of what your life's about.
Right.
And then that moves it into the present, which is, okay, how am I living this? Because actually the only moment is right now. Right now we're here, we're having a discussion on the podcast, and that is all that is happening. There actually is no past or future in this moment. But I think entrepreneurs and execs can sometimes struggle with what does that look like. So normally often what I start with is what does it not look like? What it doesn't look like is being attached to phones and digital distraction, being in your head a lot, being frustrated. And then I often talk about, well, what vehicles can we use to become more present? Is it meditation? Is it walking in nature? Is it quality time and quality people? And it's going to be different for different people. It's where the space concept comes in. It's also where I talk about the concept in flow, but in more deliberate terms. I've got to give my friend Tim Downs credit for this, because he came up with the 3 different types, and then, as is my way, I tend to take someone else's model and mess with it a bit. So presence for me, talking about flow, you're creating, there's a version of flow which is intention, which is creating things for me. So in the traditional sense, that might be goal setting.
Right.
Goal setting is often you start setting targets that are probably other people's goals. I want a 7-figure business, or I want that car, or I want the house. And if you stopped and thought, do I really, really want that?
Well, a lot of that's coming from, I talked about this recently on the podcast with Jason Greystone. Always Free. And he was saying a lot of that comes from either your ego, you're trying to prove something to someone, or you're trying to get validation from someone in your 100%. Past, family, something like that. You're trying to get validation, or your ego is trying to get attention. And you got to work out, okay, what's my version of what I actually really want.
Yes.
And I think it's very hard sometimes to admit that with the amount of pressure that is out there, whether it's social media or other things, to be a certain way of success, right?
Yeah, I agree.
And he told the story about, driving the car, that, if you're to a certain level of success, there's an expectation that you drive a really nice, expensive car, whatever. And
exactly.
He said, I just realized I hated driving, period.
Yes.
I don't like driving a car. So he said, I just made a decision to go, I'm going to sell my cars and just get cabs and trains, because I actually hate driving. But it's that, actually, just because that's what you expect is what I want to reflect. And I think you got to be very careful about, quite often other people's expectations become your reflections. And then you end up building a life, a version of that isn't yours, that isn't authentic. And then you wake up one day and wonder, like, why am I living a life I'm not happy with, right?
100%. And I think this ties back into our discussion about defining off time. Is if you truly understand self, you'll understand what you need in off time. And if you truly understand self, what you want to create, this for me space, this creation space, this intention space, it'll become much clearer what's in the game and what isn't. And then the second piece that goes along with that is like the journey piece, which is kind of like all the flow, which we call this with me or alignment. So it's like, okay, I've decided I want to create these certain things, and then I need to create that in a way, again, that's aligned with who I am as a person.
Right.
So don't if you're someone that likes to work in, short bursts, sit back, reflect, do that. You don't need to do 8 hours of hustle and grind, because you're going to hate it.
Yes.
Right? Equally, if you're someone that isn't naturally creative, but you are very good at doing things, you need to find partnerships, people that are creative. Because you're not going to enjoy doing the creative bit. You and I both love creating and stuff,
but I think there's a really interesting point here, because when we wanted to restart the podcast and do this year and kind of level it up and do studio and all those things, and my inner tension was, it's going to feel like a treadmill. If we've got to do one every week, it's going to feel like a treadmill. It's going to feel like I'm on this, got to put our podcast out everywhere. And
obligation.
Obligation.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to create from that energy.
Yeah, good for you.
And I was like, why am I doing that? And I was like, I'm doing that because that's what everyone else says you should do. Everyone else says you should have a show. If you're doing it, you should do it every week, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that'll just burn me out, and I'll then stop doing it, and I'll lose the passion for it.
Yeah.
And there's a great line I heard, and I wish I could remember who said it, but when your passion becomes your prison, that's the problem.
Oh, that's great.
And I loved that phrase. Because I was like, oh, this could easily go from being something I love to being a prison of, I've got to show up, I've got to do it every week, I've got to find somebody to interview, I have to language, which becomes really pressurizing internally, right?
100%.
And I was like, okay, so if what would creative me do that would make this fun?
Love that.
And I was like, well, I'd have longer conversations so we could explore more stuff.
Yep.
I'd do 2 a month.
Yep.
That I really, really get excited about doing. And I'd come into a studio like this once a month.
Yeah.
So I can look forward to it. And it's a bit of an event.
Yeah.
And I get to do it once a month. And that's great. And I was like, I'd look forward to that. I would really want to have selection over who I talk to, because there's people, I'm doing 2 a month. It's like, I'm not trying to get, I'm just trying to have 2 great conversations with people who aren't in a rush, who are quite happy to say, I'll spend a couple of hours, and see what we can create collaboratively. And for me, that's meant I've looked forward to every single one of these conversations, rather than when I was a year or so ago when we were doing them, and it was Zoom, and it was every week, and it was an obligation.
Yeah.
And I think there's a very important lesson there in terms of going, look, as a CEO, the danger in the O is if you feel things are obligations rather than opportunities.
100%.
I think that's the negative, and it's the same thing. I was saying this to a client yesterday. I said, the challenge is the C in CEO. So, okay, C, let's say it stands for creative, right?
Mm.
The challenge is if you haven't got any controls for that creativity, all you do is create chaos. You create absolute chaos.
Yeah.
Because there are no controls.
100%. Yeah.
So you can be creative and go, I'm a CEO, I'm creating opportunities. No, actually, you're not creating opportunities, you're creating chaos. And every time you come in and go, yeah, we want to launch this new business or this new product, which wasn't on the plan, isn't budgeted for, we haven't cash flow forecast, and you're just about to pull the trigger on it, that's how you create chaos.
Yes.
That you can't scale chaos.
Yeah.
If you try scaling chaos, it just implodes, right?
That's right.
So this whole kind of thing of like there is the yin and the yang between the obligation and the opportunity. It's like, well, here's the opportunity. I don't want to end it up with it feeling like it's an obligation.
Yeah. I think it's a great point there about you need to have enough framework or structure to thrive, but not so much that it stifles.
Totally.
So you've just given me. I'll definitely steal your story around this. That's an amazing example of with me, right? And same thing happened to me with these 1 minute videos, something that you recommended to me, I think last December actually, when during your one of your events. I thought about doing it for a while, but it was the obligation bit that I didn't like. And then I went very much like you, like, how do I want to do this? And what I realised was I'm going to do, we call 5 on a Friday in a batch, get it all lined up, and then what I do is I actually deliberately manually release them on various channels, because what I discovered was manually releasing it, I rewatch the video and I reassociate with why I'm doing this work.
Yeah.
And also got lovely feedback from people who love the concept of being able to get just a little nugget in a minute. But it's very much like your story, which is, okay, I want to do this. I need to do it in a way that makes sense. So these first two definitions of flow, I generally don't have an issue when I'm presenting this to entrepreneurs or execs, because I go, right, all I'm asking you to do is be much more deliberate in terms of what you're creating and making sure that makes sense for you and your business.
Right.
And then how you do it is really important, because most people miss this bit, which is the journey, the with me bit is like really what we're trying to do is make it easy, make it flow based, avoid what I call friction and debris. And I go, yeah, that makes sense. And then I go, there's third definition of flow, and this freaks some people out and doesn't freak some other people out. The third definition of flow is know me. There is no me. I don't exist anymore. It's like my friend Tim calls it aware presence. And it is when you are doing work where you're so much in your zone of genius, you lose concept of you as a human being. You lose concept of time. It's just, you're just there. And what I would wish for everyone listening to this podcast, or everyone that's in business or has a high level job, is spend significant time where you almost, in a good way, lose yourself in what you're doing, because it's just such a natural thing to do. For both of us, that would be speaking, for example, probably coaching as well.
No, I'd say not coaching, because I think coaching, for me anyway, I think you have to have a level of awareness and presence of where you're going and where you're trying to take somebody.
Right, so it's kind of like you're flicking almost slightly.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's when you're on stage, or for me anyway, in that space. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Coaching, not so much, because I think there's always a point you're trying to get to or overcome or help a client with. There's a level of for me anyway. It's not quite as high at that level. But I think this is where you get people like extreme sports people, right? Where their life is on their line if they get it wrong. Yeah. That they talk about that once they zone out from that, there's just nothing. There's literally nothing.
Yeah. And fundamentally, if you look back at it, this is what our ancestors were. They were present because they have to be present, because otherwise they're going to get eaten by something, or they're going to. And I think it might be in the Maasai tribes when they interviewed them, and they said, "Well, you're even worried about being eaten by a lion," and they're not, because they're present all the time, so they're just aware of this thing. And they said only when we're drunk, because obviously then they're no longer present.
Good
anymore.
Reason not to drink. But I mean, but it's interesting, isn't it? Because they talk about, like if you're walking through streets in London now. Most people are not remotely present when they're walking,
totally.
At all.
Particularly London,
Right. So they're on their phones. They're like, chance of being run over now by a cyclist is exceedingly high, because you're going to get hit by somebody because you're just not paying attention. Or chance of getting mugged goes through the roof because you're not remotely aware of threats.
Yeah.
And I think that's always something I'm very conscious of when I go into London. It's like, right, I need to be really present now because it's not an environment I spend a lot of time in. I'm in and out that I'm not familiar with the rules of everything that's going on and have a level of awareness. And I think sometimes if you're, as an entrepreneur, if you're distracted that much, you're not aware of threats to the business. You're not aware of risks until it's too late.
Totally.
And part of your job is to assess risk.
Yep. And this is one of the things is like, okay, I think in the industry, presence, meditation, mindfulness, these sort of things can be seen as a bit fluffy, a bit woo-woo, but the evidence of bringing this into businesses is exactly that. Like, you're more aware of risks. People that are present are more productive. People that are present are less ill. They're just off work less because they don't have stress going on. They're just more aware of what's going on in their body and they're managing it, dealing with it, right? Customer relationships, both internal and external, are better, like exponentially better, because you've just got a human connection, particularly when both people are present. But if you've got externally facing team members and you can teach them high levels of presence, your customer relations will go through the roof because people will go, oh, that's unusual. I don't normally get treated that way. You create a culture where it's much easier to retain your star performers.
Yes.
Because they love being there.
Yep.
And it's easy to hire people because you create a culture that becomes famous, actually, and can be just in your sector. But it's like, I want to work there. That looks really cool. I can be me. Being me will get rewarded in that, which is basically presence.
Yes.
So that all came from, going backwards a little bit, that whole presence and how do we do that? Although I didn't label it presence came from my Be Different Stay grid, which is basically the columns are past, present, future. I just hadn't worked it out yet that I was going to create a model based on that. And then you have a line which is the I row and then the we row and then the you row. So the I row is totally the past, present, future model, using your past better, using it as resources, using the future better, full colour future, what do I want, being more present. And then you bring that whole thing into the we, which if you look at business, it's the culture, that's the team, right? Great thing about a team is it should be, if you do it well, much more resilient. Because if someone's off, you've got a team to help to bring you back. You've got a team to remind you of amazing things that you've done. You've got a team to set a compelling future together. Sometimes you might be feeling a bit off. You've got a team that are, if they're largely present, it's going to encourage you to be more present. So that's very powerful. It's also where it goes wrong, because if you set the wrong culture and it's a complete distraction, and it's like you're fighting against that. It's like the whole classic peer group thing, right? Much easier to build a business with the right peer group. Again, one of the things I love about Retreat is I just sat there, even though I was a member of the team, I learned so much from being around high quality people because they all had standards, some of which I was in some areas of my life exceeding, some of which I was probably meeting, and absolutely many areas of my life, I'm like, oh, I can do a lot better because I was seeing other people doing it. My favourite bit of the grid is the U line, and it is where you're not necessarily expressing presence, but it's emotions like love, appreciation, gratitude, and in a business sense, that might mean more kindness, appreciation, recognition. So we've got to use language that people are happy to use. And it's, if I'm in a good place and I'm in a good enough place that I'm able to recognize great things in others or cool things in others and tell them, that's powerful, because then you're creating a ripple effect. So then it's like, so an example of that would be, you use the past column with you, it would be, you did something for me in the past and I just want you to know how much difference that made for me.
Oh, wow.
You can do the present bit, which is, I just want to tell you that right now you are having a significantly positive impact on me, and I want to tell you what that is, because you might not even realise it. And then a really cool one, we've got to be a little careful about not projecting our model of the world or our view of a person into them, but generally we see greatness in others before they see it in themselves. So the kind of the you future bit is, I just want to tell you, I think you're amazing at this, this, and this, and I'm very excited for what you could create from that space. That would be the purest form, and I'd love to support you with that as well. Or it may be that someone's come to you and go, well, I'm thinking about doing this. And then you say, oh, yeah, you would be brilliant at that. Here's why I think you'd be brilliant at that. And they go, oh, that's cool. Yeah, you're seeing that in me. That's really good. So that's really powerful. And all this came about, the whole kind of love, appreciation, gratitude, contribution, and presence, they all kind of come in a little cluster, all came about from this, I feel myself choking up before I even really mention her name, but this a wonderful girl called Leonor, who was my friend's daughter, 2014, 23rd of July, 2014. My friend George, who's also a Tony Robbins trainer, he'd been in and out of hospital with his daughter, and she had something called Wilms tumor, which is very much childhood cancer. It appeared on the kidneys. If you catch it early enough, not a problem. And they didn't catch it; they just didn't spot it. So it got to a point where it had moved to other parts of the body, so it was on the lungs as well. And he came home from hospital with them having told him it's terminal and all we can do is make her comfortable. And she's 5 years old. Where I come into the story was he messaged me on Facebook in the evening of 23rd of July, 2014, and he said, "Hi Rich, are you there?" And I nearly went, he tends to ignore it. So I remember going to Euro Disney or Disneyland Paris at like 3 a.m. or something, so I nearly ignored it because I really shouldn't be up at 10 o'clock at night. And I said, "Yeah, I'm here, George." And he said, "Oh, I need your help." And it's the old classic thing of leadership, isn't it? Some are born into it. Some, I think, kind of develop into it, and others are just kind of thrown into it. And I think I was probably thrown into it. And he said, "My daughter's dying. I spent the last year trying to find solutions for her. Used up a lot of my money. I was about to say, how much money do you need?" And he went, "I'm not asking you for money. I want you to help me raise money. Revolutionary treatment in Germany. Need to get her there like now, to give her a chance." And I said, "How much do you need?" And he said, 30,000 euros. It's like, okay. I'll sort it for you. My brain's going, oh my God, I'm going to Disneyland Paris tomorrow in early morning. They're going to have rubbish. I think at the time the internet was not great, wireless not great. And I'm like, oh my God. And I went, no, just got to do it. Just got to find a way. And I think it's interesting that commitment's an interesting word. That's the first time in my life I've been truly committed to something. And one of the great things about social media was sharing this stuff. So I just told Leonor's story, and I said, we need the money. And one Robbins trainer, who I won't name out of respect, immediately turned around and said, I will back this. Get her to Germany now. In the end, we literally raised 30,000 in a few days, and we'd raised 50,000 by the end of the week. And I'm like, quality problem, we've got more money than we need. Got to Germany. But this girl who was in pain was sharing all these feelings of love and appreciation and gratitude. Thank you so much for allowing me to go on holiday. As they term it, I go on holiday to Germany, Mum and me and Daddy. This girl showed so much compassion. She had so much compassion for life that she even had compassion for cancer, because they were describing the cancer as a little bug they need to take out of her. And she said, will the bug be okay if they take it out of my body?
Wow.
Bonkers, right? So her emotions that she showed and the bonding and community it created, there was like a Facebook group that Mum set up that had like hundreds of thousands of people in it. Raised the money, got her there, gave her a chance. So that was end of July, and we got her there end of July, August, and then started to improve. And then September, I was at a Robbins event, funnily enough, and I got a message saying she died. I talk about past a lot. So like guilt, shame, regret. Could I have done more? Could we have done something differently? That's not fair. I've been cheated. That's not the outcome we were meant to get. All these people pulling for it. Like the feel-good factor it created, even though it's around the little girl having cancer, was incredible. And then my friend George said, oh, do you know what? I need to give this meaning. So he went on a walk and on the Camino, and even to this day, he talks about positive meaning of having this amazing soul for 5 years and how fortunate he is. And I'm like, well, if her dad can do that, I better do that. And that's where the Be Different State thing started. And didn't have a grid initially. It was just like me just talking about her life. And I very stupidly and very slowly only thought it was me sharing that story at Robbins events. Because we had a foundation talk, which is when I became a trainer, this is the thing I feared most, which was, people have come here to do the event. They weren't here to be asked about charity and to give money.
Yeah.
I feel a bit awkward about that. And that's kind of the thing I was dreading, because as a trainer, you get your own team and it's mildly competitive, like whose team can raise the most money. I'm like, well, I'm not sure I feel about that. Anyway, I created strategies before that to be pretty good at it, because I'm quite competitive. And then the next event, I went, I'm just going to talk about Leonor. So I don't know exactly what this might mean to you, but for me, this wonderful girl created a community, really helped people to tap into contribution and what that meant to them. So I just talked about her and I said, if you'd like to give some money, that'd be great. My team raised 3 times more money than any other team.
Wow.
So the head trainer came up to me and said, what did you do? And I went, I'm not sure it's what I did. I think it's how I encourage people to be. And he went, oh, great. Yeah, can you teach that? And I went, probably. Next event, I'm there teaching it to all the other trainers. I'm quite a new trainer at this point. I'm only like 2 years in. I'm teaching all the trainers how to raise money in the foundation. And part of my brain's going, I'm not sure I want to teach them what I do. I want to win again. Anyway, they all did their version of some of them told Leonor's story. Some did their version of it. Some of them didn't use it. Came top again. Okay, this is cool. Then I had a Japanese team. And I was speaking, and I had a Japanese person translating, which is quite an interesting experience, to about 80 people.
Right.
And I'm like, I've got to do the foundation talk in a couple of days. And my Japanese leadership team went, there's not really a lot of reference to charity in Japanese culture, so that might be problematic. My brain went, I'm just going to do it anyway. What was really cool was I did a part of the speech, got translated into Japanese. But another leader was so inspired by it, he spoke about Japanese teenage suicide. So we had 2.5 Japanese teams all gathered in one place.
Right.
This guy's talking about Japanese suicide in Japanese, getting translated in my ear. I'm crying my eyes out. And these Japanese people that apparently had no reference to charity, our team came top, $186,000. So the Japanese came second, another one came like top 5. And I'm like, okay. So there's something special going on here. And then my final ever talk, just to kind of wrap things up, was like, why is this important? It's because you're connecting people to a sense of purpose and being, and it's moving people to take action. So I think this is absolutely true in business as well. But the final one was funny because as I became a senior trainer, first one in Great Britain, super proud of it. That means you work with the platinum teams. Now these platinum teams spend 80,000 plus to be at the events. Part of that goes to charity anyway.
Right.
They go to every event, and every event they get asked for more money. So we're told to be really careful about that. Don't push it too hard. Just say, look, if you'd like to give some more, that'd be great. I told Leonor's story again. And what was hilarious was the speech normally meant to be given 15, 20 minutes. And we got given about 8 because they were compressing the schedule. And my brain went, screw you. Right, how can I do this in 8 minutes? Not like my talk at retreat. I just went on a complete rant. And I went, blah, blah, blah. And then with about a minute to go, a hand went up and I went, oh my goodness, I'm trying to do this fast. And I got, hey Rich, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, I just want to say, if the team raised $10,000, I'm going to match it. Quality interruption. His mate next to him went, yeah, I'll do that as well. I'm like, wow. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. I said, the rest of you just have to decide what you want to do. So it was one of the biggest Date with Destinies ever. And there were unusually about 70 something teams there, probably with about 60 people in each team. The team that came second raised about $45,000 and ours raised 108.
Wow.
So there's 70 odd teams
Wow.
that capped at that, and then we're 2.5 times bigger. And I'm like, this is special. I think it was that moment that led me then to talk about it more in a wider circumstance, to develop the Be Different Stay grid, to then go, oh, the cons, past, present, future model. That's really cool. And that has become, my main model now, in terms of what I speak about, what I coach about. And then also, more recently, as I said, when we came in, looking at the past, looking at how people form identity based on what they focus on in their past. And that can be good, that can be bad. But if you create a really positive, powerful identity based on positive past references, if you drive all your behavior from an identity place, you're going to be in a good place.
Yeah.
So, it's one little girl back in 2014 completely changed my life.
That's impact.
Yeah.
That's impact.
Yeah. And that's why, a lot of the work I do now with entrepreneurs and execs is like I said, impact and legacy, because I was very lucky to be given that gift, but you don't have to wait for that. You don't have to wait for a moment like that. Create another brother out of it, which was lovely. So George is like my brother from another mother now. So completely changed the course. That was probably the start of me leaving the Robbins environment, even though it took 6 years. That was like, there's more to this. And it's that being space, that kind of love space, that present space. That's really powerful. All the other stuff's useful. Don't get me wrong. Like Tony's an absolute genius and still use a lot of his stuff, but for me, it's not the central gravity anymore.
Mm.
You talked about ego earlier on. Like, I think there's a wonderful guy that I follow, Peter Crone, Crone. And he talks about the ego space versus kind of like the universal being present space. And he said, and I think it's very useful. I use this with my clients a lot, is 3 warnings of ego are scarcity. I believe that there's scarcity when probably there isn't. Inadequacy. I'm not good enough. That's not even possible, because what's a measure of am I good enough? Like, I might not be good at things, but am I good enough? That can't be a measure. So scarcity, inadequacy, and then insecurity. I'm not safe. Now, all these go back to survival. Cavemen, cavewomen. Be aware of scarcity. Makes sense. Don't want to run out of stuff. Inadequacy. Am I valuable enough for this tribe, or I'm going to get kicked out? It probably means I'm dead. Insecurity. Are we safe? Is there enough comfort? Most of that in modern society, a lot of that thinking is outdated. Can be useful. But I always use that as like, well, how do I know if I'm in being or in presence? I'm like, you probably will know when you're not if you look out for these 3 things. So that's why my coaching and speaking is where it is. It's because of that one lovely little 5-year-old girl, the pink princess, we call her Leonor, who has had such an incredible impact on so many people. And it's such a privilege to be able to share a story again, once again. Always joke up about it, and it's cool. I know it's coming.
but I think firstly, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Secondly, I think it's interesting that we tend to judge impact in time, how long we're on the planet for.
Yes.
Right? And she was on the planet for a very short space of time, yet the legacy of that is you're still running it.
Yep.
People who would have heard that story at those events will have had a impact from that goes on and goes on and goes on. And sometimes people who get the shortest amount of time have the biggest amount of impact.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't always understand why it works that way, but it does. Sometimes people, I'm always reminded of, Kobe Bryant, what an incredible guy. Like what was he about to do in the world from a business standpoint? And then that's it, gone, early 40s out, game out and gone with his daughter. And you go, but he had 40 years and did more than most people will do in 400 years.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think there's just something about people who can move others that sometimes they don't need 50, 100 years to have a legacy. They can do it in 5. They can do it in 10. And also it's that whole piece about learning to translate pain into purpose. If you can shift pain into purpose,
yes,
that's rocket fuel.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, and it's emotionally charged rocket fuel too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, with something that's that painful, I think it's a natural human response. Either you become a victim to it, or you give it purpose. And
that is a choice, though, right?
It's absolutely a choice. And it's very interesting that, you know, the people that I meet at your events, they're very much purpose led. Because what I've discovered, you know, speaking to sort of the general population, is some people are interested in purpose, impact, that type of stuff. They're kind of in it. A lot of people aren't, but some people are, and even less people are interested in legacy. But those that generally they come together. So people that are interested in impact and legacy, generally in some area of their life, are this phrase that I've really attached to this year, is being extraordinary. They really are genuinely being extraordinary in an aspect, or sometimes in some cases, Kobe Bryant being a great example, multiple aspects of life. I think it almost becomes addictive in a good way, because you're thinking about, you know, I sort of talk a lot with clients about your value isn't truly value until you interface it with something, or interface it with somebody, probably more accurately. That's so.
Explain that, because I'm not sure I understand.
I think so. I have a view that a very large percentage of the population have inherent greatness,
right,
or extraordinary aspects to them.
Okay.
But if you keep it to yourself, or you don't share it, and there's something that I'm personally looking at a lot in my own business, is how am I going to share what I know or who I am?
Right.
I think if you find a way to almost interface that internal value with other people, then that's where the true value comes about. It's actually where you can scale it as well. And I look at some of the, you know, some of the amazing business owners that I see at your events, is the ones that are massively successful are generally people that have gone, right, how can I provide solutions but to people's problems, but also maybe get people what they want. But fundamentally, that's coming from inherent internal value within them and their team.
Yeah, I would
there has
say
to be an expression almost.
Yeah, I would say it's coming from a place of service.
Yes.
Right? Like, you know, there's a phrase that we use in our team, which is serve hard, sell easy, right? Like, if you serve hard, you don't have to sell people very hard. They go, wow, you're adding so much value, how do I get more of it?
Yeah.
Or this is so incredibly powerful, I want to spend more time around you, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I think it's whether you're coming, and I think, you know, scarcity is the opposite of that. If you're coming from a world of I have to go get because there isn't enough, then you're not coming from a place of trying to serve what's best to people.
That's right.
Because you're trying to come from a place of what I can get rather than what I can give.
Yeah, totally agree.
And I think I just think it's interesting, because I think at the moment a lot of people are being conditioned to spend a lot of their time in scarcity.
Yeah.
Which is stopping them being extraordinary.
Yeah.
Because the word, I like playing with words, as you know. Now, if you take the word extraordinary, if you don't want to be ordinary, you have to do extra. Yeah. You have to go above, beyond. You have to do more than is expected. You have to give extra. You have to give more value. You have to give more than people pay for in your product or whatever. Yeah. And I think the media has done a very good job of conditioning everybody to be in scarcity over the last 3 years, with everything being a crisis.
Definitely.
You know, there's a cost of living crisis, there's a this crisis, there's a that crisis.
Yeah.
Can we
react?
Yeah, I'm not saying there aren't challenges and fundamental issues, and the economy has got all kinds of things that are going on when AI is changing it. And I know you and I were talking about that before we sat down, but I think if you condition people to be in scarcity, then people just live in a world where they don't want to go and play the game of being extraordinary. Yeah, because they're already under the assumption there isn't enough extra for everybody anyway. Yeah.
What do I have to do to get
to survive? Right, like you're putting people into the survival mode of I need to win and you need to lose because otherwise I can't survive, rather than actually collaboration beats competition. You know, we both coach, but we're both sat here having a conversation. There's no reason why we can't collaborate, right?
Exactly.
Like, and I think that, but you have to actively fight that conditioning.
Oh.
It is everywhere.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
You have to actively protect yourself from it.
Yes.
Because it'll seep in.
Yeah.
I find myself sometimes going, oh, hang on a minute. I'm starting to operate from a place of ego. I've got a fish hooked here.
Yeah.
I've got pulled into the scarcity piece, right? Like I'm nervous about if we make this investment or if we invest in this event or we do this. And but what if it doesn't work out? And it's like, well, it's like, hang on, have we ever? One of my favorite questions to clients, if they ever start going, yeah, but what if it doesn't work? I was like, so how long have you been in business? 20 years, right? Have you ever had issues that you had to solve massive puzzles? Yes. Have you ever run out of money and sorted it? Yes. So what makes you believe you wouldn't sort it next time around?
This is referencing your past in a really
if you I'm not saying let's not bet the farm on everything. Let's not take a risk that if it goes wrong and we're wrong, we're out of business. Let's not do that. But if we can take the risk and know that it won't, if we're wrong, we can recover because it's not death line risk. It's not going to take us under. Yeah. Then part of playing the game is taking calculated risks and understanding that. I mean, go back to your banking and that part of that world, if you did it, was calculating risks. Yeah.
Identify risk, calculate risk.
Right.
Yeah. And I always think this is why peer groups are so important, because what a high quality peer group will do will take you out of that kind of media conditioned scarcity. And it's actually, just to touch on one last aspect of the Leonor story, is the reason that I came up with Be the Difference today, because what I found remarkable was how people were being as a result of her being.
Right.
You absolutely can do the classic quote, which is make a difference or make the difference, but that has to, in my opinion, come secondary to being. If your being is in a good place, generally what you're making or what you're doing is going to be largely effective, as long as you've got good mentors, good strategies in place. So I always, whenever people talk about my stuff, they will say, oh yeah, make the difference, make the difference. I said, no, it's be the difference first.
Why do you think my top performers plateau sometimes then? What causes a top performer to plateau?
Yeah, so I think it's they have reached excellence and they've kind of polished their existing game to a point where you can't make it any better. And so this is where you do need outside influences and outside input. Is if you want to improve, you're probably going to have to play a completely different game. So it might be, well, the one I always look at, which is fascinating, is darts. You look at darts progression is really easy to measure because you can look at averages and check out percentages and things like that. And you look at people that persist with darts and get mentoring and so on and so forth. They absolutely have a series of plateaus,
right,
before improving again. And actually after plateau, normally there's a bit of a dip, because there's a dip because they having to reorganize the system. They basically have to deliberately introduce chaos.
It's S-curve, isn't it? In a business context, I'd call that an S-curve.
Yeah. So it's a whole series of S-curves.
Right.
Where the S is, there's a flat bit and there's a bit of a dip. And the key with, the first key is recognizing you're hitting a plateau.
Yep.
Second key is, okay, I need to disrupt the system with something. And it could be, a sports person, it could be a certain technique's got you this far, but actually realistically you need to change it.
Or a model in your business,
or
a product, or a channel to market, to put it in that context.
Absolutely.
You might have maxed out the channel of LinkedIn and now you need to go to YouTube because actually you can't get any further doing what you're doing on LinkedIn.
Absolutely, exactly the same. And then so part of your brain's going to go, I don't like this. I don't like the disruption. Because plateau's good because it's consistent. I know what I'm going to get. So this is a survival brain kicking in. But nearly always you get some dip after plateau if you've introduced chaos. It could be momentary. It could be literally within a day or a week, or sometimes it could take months or years. Generally, what I found is that the plateau lasts longer the dip lasts longer if you're not enjoying it and you're not seeing the bigger picture.
Right.
So you actually need to embrace the chaos and go, oh, dip, good. That means I'm about to go skyrocketing. This is fantastic. I'm just reorganizing.
Yep.
Just restructuring. And generally I find people that are in that space, dip doesn't last very long at all. And it's a tiny dip. Whereas people that go, oh, it's a dip. Oh, I shouldn't be having a dip. This is really bad. And start to go, why am I having a dip? Let me dig into the dip. And of course the dip goes deeper and deeper and deeper and goes longer and longer and longer. Plateaus are absolutely inevitable. It's you helped me come up with a phrase actually for my business, which is perform and transform. So perform bit is you've probably got capacity to improve your performance and your team's performance, and that is just working the curve, just enjoying going up. But there's probably going to come a point where in certain areas you'll start to hit capacity, so your perform levels out, then you have to introduce transform, which is organised chaos, basically.
Right.
So if you want to move to another level, you need both. So you need to be able to. So what I find is you'll be careful with both, right? So if you're just focusing on perform, you will hit a plateau and you'll try and fight the plateau and you'll get really annoyed that you're in a plateau, but you're probably never going to break above the plateau. You need the chaos to transform bit, but certain personalities, people are addicted to transform. So they're constantly reinventing, reintroducing. They love the chaos of all that. And what they're not doing is giving themselves the opportunity to ride the curve up, which is the perform bit again. So you do need both. What you really need to do is to, I think if we're looking at business, which is why we're talking about this, you need to disrupt enough things to make a difference, but you don't need to disrupt so many things that you don't know what was the thing that worked.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Don't disrupt so much that you break the stuff that's actually working really well already.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to transform. That's just going to create chaos.
Yeah.
That's a really good insight, actually. I think you've just unlocked something for me.
Okay, cool.
With a client of mine who's doing is the addiction to transform.
Yeah.
But actually, we don't get to perform because we're just constantly in chaos.
Yeah. You're moving the target all the time. Right? It's really great when you get a client that's hit a plateau. They know they've hit plateau and they go, I'm pretty sure I've hit plateau because of this. And you go, yeah, you're probably right. Let's disrupt that. Let's change it. And then let's test it. Yeah. And then hopefully we'll see the uptick and then we'll just ride that. And as they're riding off, then if they're smart, if they're rather than when they're at plateau, if they just start to see the graph just sort of starting to flatten off.
Yep.
Then they'll be coming to you and going, I think we need to work on more stuff. And I do think that's a fundamentally different approach to coaching is, am I using coaching to fix stuff, which I think is a tiny part of the pie, really is, can I use coaching and mentoring to create possibility to expand? So I think coaching and mentoring should be used more in an expansive sense as opposed to fixing stuff. Fixing stuff should be a small part of it, an inevitable part of it, because we course correct. Most people either don't have a coach because they think I haven't got any problems to fix. Some people go to a coach because they've got a problem to fix, and once it's fixed, they go, that's fine. So they're only ever going to get back to neutral then. The smart people, that's why I've got my own coach as well. So it's expansive and that's never ending. I mean, sometimes you might change coaches because you want a different form of expansion or growth. That's the smart bit, because as human beings, we have absolutely no concept of what we're capable of. Everything we think of, probably someone's done before, by the odd few examples. So why not? And that's where I think a coach or a mentor, the right one, that can keep on pointing towards, okay, again, being extraordinary, expansive, what do you want? What are you capable of? What are you dreaming of? Sometimes I just need reminders, like you reminded me last year about 1 minute videos. I've been thinking about it for years, and it only was like swimming. Went for a swim a few weeks ago, and I went 1 minute videos. I went, okay, got to find a way to do it that I would enjoy, like you've identified with the podcast. Okay, now I have to do it. And that's the commitment piece. Don't think about it anymore. You've got to do it.
I think for me, it's not even I have to, it's I'm inspired to.
Yeah.
Because have to is pressure language.
Yes, we've got to be careful about yes, absolutely. You've got to be careful about you would have to. So in that sense, I'm using have to as an inspiring language, you said. But yeah, you do have to be very careful with have to, should, ought to, these sort of things. Like,
but that's what I want to, isn't it?
Suddenly
it's like, I want to do that now. Yes. I actually want to play that game. I actually want to find out, can I develop that skill? Or it's like that's coming from a... that's the creative possibility piece. For me.
Yeah, I agree.
I think if you're in that energy, you create with an abundance mindset, not a scarcity mindset as well.
Absolutely true. Yeah.
Well, listen, I've loved the conversation. Wow. Listen, thank you for helping me in the way that you've helped me to certainly perform and up my game and retreat. And I know last year you absolutely helped members who came on retreat to transform without question with some of the exercises that we did. And we didn't even get a chance to talk about the crazy arrow break that we did last year.
Yeah,
that was kind of mad that we did that last year. And the challenges that threw up for people around, is it possible, can I do it, all of those kind of things, and how we kind of took that to a whole new level. So I'm excited to see what we can do this year. Obviously, where can people find out about you? What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, keep things simple. So website richwaterman.com, and then all socials, I'm all Rich
We'll link
Waterman.
below, obviously.
Yeah.
We'll make sure.
Yeah, cool.
And for those of you if you're considering coming on retreat, or you've ever wanted to invest in yourself and find out what you're really truly capable of, trust me, coming and spending 4 days on the Grown Up Business Retreat with people like Rich being one of the mentors, the rest of our amazing team as well, and me to lead that experience, which is a privilege every year to stand up, and it really is a genuine privilege, then click the link below or check out the grownupbusinessretreat.com. Check out grownupbusinessretreat.com for all the information about this year. As of the time we're talking now, I think we have 10 hotel rooms left for it, and then it's done for this year.
Grab one.
So if you want to find out about that, check that out. Otherwise, Rich, just thanks ever so much for sharing the story, moving. I think we are all going to remember, past, present, future, and Leonor, and the story that will live and live, my friend. So thank you for being on the show, and can't wait to spend more time with you this year in October on retreat.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
We'll see you on the next episode. Take care. That concludes this episode of the Grown Up Business Podcast. I hope that got you fired up and ready to grow. The key thing, though, is to remember you get paid on what you get done. So write down the top 3 actions from this show and make sure that you implement those in the next 72 hours. Hey, and while you're at it, make sure you click the links and the resources below this episode to claim free growth resources to help you build the business you desire and deserve. I'll see you on the next episode.